This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about something that's not clickbait, it's not a conspiracy theory, but rather I'm trying to put together a bunch of different threads that I've been covering on this channel. And I think when you consider all of these together, it's extremely concerning. What it could lead to is it could actually lead to humanity entering a 1,000-year prison where you have all the governments conspiring and controlling the global human population. And again, not clickbait, not conspiracy theory. You're going to see that these are very real things that I'm talking about. So I would encourage you to watch this video all the way to the end. This thesis revolves around three main pillars, and they all are various forms of passports. We have a movement passport, we have an internet passport, and we have what you might call a money passport. Now, the last 50 or so years have been relatively good years for global movement. It's been fairly easy, at least for the developed countries' populations, to have enough money and enough freedom to be able to really travel almost anywhere in the world they wanted. There's been some fluidity involved here. But what we're seeing is a trend, especially over the last 18 months. I'm not going to go into this in too much depth, but I think you know what I'm talking about. There's been a trend towards restricting movement. And whether this is the correct policy to have or the incorrect policy doesn't really matter, because the end result is the same. We have essentially increased movement passports. So that's the first one. Then the second pillar, or the second passport, would be what I'm calling an internet passport. And this really is sort of a foregone conclusion of what you might call KYC culture, which is what we live in. This is a term that comes from Wall Street, from finance and regulation of Wall Street. It basically means that brokers, brokerage companies, brokers, and banks need to know their customers. Now, this seems like a very good thing on the surface. You don't want to take on a money laundering customer or something like this. Of course, KYC hasn't stopped the large U.S. banks from laundering tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars worth of dirty money, drug dealer money, etc. But the whole point of this really is it's another arm of the surveillance state that's done under the guise of KYC and protecting your customers. So what is KYC? This is basically, if you've ever opened up a brokerage account or bank account, you know that you need to provide your legal name, your home address, your driver's license, passport. And what they've been adding lately, I've been noticing to some services, is actual face scans, where you take a selfie or you take a picture of your driver's license, and then you go to a certain link and they will scan your face through your computer camera and try to match it. So this is quite disturbing. This is a new biometric version that's being added. But KYC has really been around since, call it 2001, and the beginning of the war on terror. Now, this seems reasonable, of course, to open up an account that involves money. But what I'm suggesting here is this could be extended to cover your access to the internet. So it's one thing to have to provide this information to open up a brokerage account. I don't think it protects anyone. Instead, it creates honeypots of personal information that hackers can access. We've talked about this before, but imagine if you had to provide all this information to gain access to the internet, and then your online access was used to monitor every single thing you did on the internet. And again, even if you never do anything illegal, you never say anything nasty online, it's very easy if you have a treasure trove of personal information on someone, especially, maybe you sent that email with an off-color joke 10 years ago, or you said something bad about some political figure who ends up becoming extremely powerful. Or what if someone just decides to go after you, a government organization, and take things out of context? This can all happen. So this was what I'd be worried about: an internet passport. You could call it a KYC internet, and this really would be the end of online privacy and anonymity online. I do believe that privacy and anonymity are fundamental human rights. You have the right to reveal as much of yourself to the outside world, to the public, as you want. And some people will be very public figures. Some people will be very private figures. But there's no reason that a bunch of government bureaucrats or large corporations need to know so many personal things about you. Now, what would be the most likely excuse to bring in a KYC internet? We've talked about this a little bit before, and it's really just being talked about everywhere on official platforms like the World Economic Forum's website, talking about how the pandemic teaches us to prepare for the inevitable global cyber attack. This is quite strange, actually, to see this emphasis. And if you look through the World Economic Forum's publications, this is a theme that keeps coming up again and again. It's also coming up among various spy companies or cybersecurity companies, we might call them, like Check Point, for example, talking about cyber pandemics and how dangerous they are because they can obviously spread much more quickly than biological pandemics. So it's almost like someone knows something here. Maybe this is just being prudent. It makes sense that we could eventually have a global cyber attack. On the other hand, this would be the perfect thing to bring about if you wanted to create an excuse for internet passports. This tweet from Echo Chamber talks about how the World Economic Forum wants you to use ID to log into the internet as a way of preventing cybercrime, but then points out that there's a very broad definition of cyber criminal as they apply this label readily to those who post or host content deemed to be misinformation or disinformation. So, for example, many of my videos talking about various coming central bank policies and CBDCs, this might be construed as misinformation, especially by powerful people who don't want people like me uncovering what central banks and governments are up to. So we're not just talking about policing the internet from call it child pornographers and drug dealers and stuff. This could be used very easily to stifle political speech, either from the left or from the right. There's a saying, never let a crisis go to waste. Again, this could be a real cyber attack online, or this could be a false flag attack. It doesn't really matter. The end result would end up being the same. And if you did bring down the internet, whether accidentally or intentionally in some sort of false flag attack, if you brought down the internet for just 7 days, even less than a week, the whole world, the majority of the world's population would be begging their governments to protect them from cyber terrorists, because you could have a situation where the water stops flowing from your utilities, the electricity goes off, so much is dependent. Obviously, your food and various deliveries, basically everything you do online, would be disrupted, your income as well as your spending. So something like this really would be a great way of starting an internet crackdown or global internet crackdown. And we saw something similar happen in 2001 and the global war on terror, or the war on terror as it's called, where you have something that some form of attack, and it's sort of an obscure form of attack, and there are lots of conflicting views of it, but then it's used by the establishment to further their goals. If you're finding this video helpful so far, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button, maybe share this video with a few friends, and also I'd encourage you to sign up for my email list. I send out one email every Saturday. You can unsubscribe at any time. But if I were to be deplatformed for some reason, and you can see reasons in this video why people might want to deplatform me, at least we'll be able to stay in touch. So I'll stick a link to my email list in the description notes below. So please sign up for that. Now, if we end up getting a cyber attack and the cyber terrorists end up demanding a Bitcoin ransom, for example, which we've seen various, the pipeline attack where the hackers demanded a Bitcoin ransom, this could be used to try to hurt Bitcoin's brand, or it could end up hurting Bitcoin's brand in a sense. You'd have a lot of people who are ignorant about Bitcoin, not just thinking that Bitcoin's just used for buying illegal drugs online, which is sort of FUD from 2012 and 2013, but that Bitcoin is a currency of choice of bad people like cyber attackers who brought down the global internet. So we could see a way that the authorities could try to bring in Bitcoin as a scapegoat as well. This leads us to the third passport. We talked about movement passports, internet passports, and now what I'm just broadly calling a money passport. A couple days ago, we talked about Saul Amarova's plan. She's President Biden's nominee for the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. This is not a conspiracy theory. She's a real person who went to Moscow University and got the Lenin Award for her research. I talk more about her plan to seize your bank account and to control it in this video, which I'll link to below. But the basic summary is move all commercial bank accounts. So your checking account, your savings account, move it to the Fed, so it'd be held directly at the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank in the U.S., and then allow the Fed to confiscate part of your savings if necessary to tighten as a form of monetary policy, as a form of tightening the money supply. This is quite real. This is not a conspiracy theory. I link to her paper in the description notes to this video, A New Plan to Seize Your Bank Account. So even if she is not nominated, it's very important to realize what ideas are being discussed among the elites and what is coming down the pipe in coming years. If not this year, certainly in the next few years. So we have Saul Omarova's plan. Under the same category, money passport, we could talk about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Obviously, China loves them. They're the furthest ahead among all countries in terms of having their own central bank digital currency. And central bank digital currencies are exactly what you'd expect the Chinese Communist Party to like, because it's a way of very, very closely tracking people. CBDCs are spy coins. They're the ultimate tool of surveillance for the surveillance state. And the way it would work is this. It's a little bit similar to Omarova's proposal. You would have, there'd be no more cash, because we all know that cash is dirty and spreads disease. And instead, there'd be no more bank accounts either. You'd just have an account with the Fed, with the U.S. central bank. That wouldn't even be a bank account. It would be like a wallet, like a cryptocurrency wallet. You could call it Fed Wallet for your Fed coin. And this would be the main way that you get paid by your employer. And it would be where you pay your taxes out of. And it would be where you hold your savings as well, at least your cash savings. And this would be a ledger that's not open to everyone, but that's open to groups like the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury, the IRS. They'd be able to see every single dollar and cent moving into and out of your Fed wallet. Again, this is a dystopian dream, but it's a dystopian dream that is already coming to fruition in places like China. There's been a lot of research. The Fed has said that they're researching a CBDC. So again, not a conspiracy theory. This is something that is inevitable because it's such a powerful tool. The U.S. government and the Federal Reserve will want to have it in their arsenal. The problem with this, of course, is that it gives the government much too much control over your finances. If you do something quote unquote bad, this may be something that's truly ethically or morally bad, or it may just be something that's currently illegal. If you do something bad, your wallet can be debited or even turned off. This also would be a way of having very targeted taxes. So if your ancestors did something bad, like had slaves, which is clearly a bad thing, I'm not apologizing for that, but maybe your ancestors had slaves 150 years ago, and the government decides that the descendants of slave owners need to pay a 10% reparation tax. It'd be very easy just to debit your Fed wallet. You can apply this to any social or social justice cause. I just pick one example here, and it could be something as simple as you voted for the wrong candidate in 2016 or 2020 or 2024, whatever that means. This could be an attack that comes from the left or that comes from the right, but you voted for the wrong person. And as a result, you need to pay a 10% penalty tax, a 10% wealth tax that's automatically debited from your Fed wallet. There's already talk, as I said, that there's already propaganda coming out from the World Economic Forum talking about how cash is very dirty and spreads disease, and so we need to get rid of it. But the real reason that government institutions do not like cash is it's really the last bastion of private money that cannot be traced. It's anonymous money. If you buy something using cash, no one needs to know your identity. By contrast, if you use Apple Pay or Venmo or something like this, you really are inside of the KYC system. And governments want to close all of these loopholes, like the cash loophole. And they'll do it under the pretense of saying that cash has, dollar bills have too much cocaine on them, or they have too many viruses on them. Something like this is an excuse that we're already seeing in articles like this. We had Boris Johnson even yesterday saying at the summit that was held, I'll be asking world leaders to take action on coal, cars, cash, and trees. There's a lot of online debate exactly what he meant by cash here. It's pretty clear to me what he means. He means that we need to move away from physical cash, maybe under the pretense here that all those dollar bills you need to, or all those pounds you need to cut down trees or something to print up the money. I'm not sure exactly how this ties in, but that would be my guess. But there's certainly a war on physical cash, simply because cash is much more difficult to track for the surveillance state. So these are the three passports: movement passport, internet passport, money passport. This is really, when you take them together and you look at the confluence of these trends, this is really an Orwellian nightmare that it would be hard to imagine a worse nightmare. This used in combination, if these things all come to fruition and are used in the way that I think they're going to be used, this really could create a multi-century or even 1,000-year prison from which it would be very difficult for anyone to escape. If you're embedded in China now, if you're trapped in China, it's very difficult to escape from that system. We can imagine a global version of this, and where basically it's a prison where you are controlled by a movement passport, an internet passport, and some sort of money passport involving CBDCs. If we sit back and allow this to happen, we may be choosing our children's, grandchildren's, great-grandchildren's future, because once a panopticon like this is set up, it's going to be very, very difficult to escape from. Meanwhile, I'm trying to talk about this. I'm talking about Bitcoin, all these things. What are people focused on? I'm so frustrated. All the altcoiners are focused on whether SHIB is going to flip Dogecoin, blah, 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 Ethereum, Solana, XRP. We're facing real threats here. There's only one solution for this, and that is, at least on the monetary side, that's Bitcoin. Meanwhile, we have all the altcoin promoters really doing the global government's bidding and distracting people from the real threats that are at hand, especially money passports. I wanted to end on a note, remind people that Bitcoin does not require the internet anymore. The Blockstream has put up these satellites that allow nodes to talk to each other over the satellites, no internet required. So this is the real work that's being done by Bitcoiners. Blockstream's a great company. They are building out Bitcoin network infrastructure. Meanwhile, we have people like Vitalik and Ethereum, and then all the dog coins, completely distracting people from what is really happening. So I think it's very important to understand these trends. You may put them together slightly differently than I do, but I think they are real threats, and they create the potential for a 1,000-year prison for humanity. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.